I know what you're thinking. Caleb, what are the worst songs of the year 1990? I'm about to give you some answers, folks. I've decided to take a little look back at the wacky decade I was born in known as the 90s. And to, of course, kick things off, let's go to the one that started it all. The year itself, 1990, it's a bit of an oddity. I found a lot of very similar sounding tracks throughout this list. A lot of leftovers from the 80s, specifically New Jack Swing, silly disposable pop rap, a lot of dance pop, a lot of goofy 80s rock, very long and terminal ballads, a few decent R&B tracks, a little bit of a burgeoning alternative scene, and silly dance songs. Lots of silliness, lots of ugly Casio keyboards, lots of very long songs, lots of very slow songs. It wasn't a particular favorite of mine. However, there were some aspects that I did enjoy. It wasn't all just blah. Like, when I was going through the list, I actually filled out my top 10 pretty easily and had to make some hard cuts. And it took me almost to the end to actually get a full top 10 worst. And I think there are some aspects that were nice. Started to see a few glimmers of what would become the trends for the 90s. For instance, those few alternative hits. They weren't the ones that would end up defining the decade, but they indicated the direction. As well, the dance tracks were also going to have a huge impact on the years to come. As a whole, though, a lot of it isn't all that well remembered. A lot of things took very hard turns throughout the decade and never really got back to them. I don't think we've ever really had any sort of R&B that takes much inspiration from New Jack Swing since then. And hip-hop has gone much harder than what you could get away with in 1990. But let's take a little retrospective. Number 10, All or Nothing by Milli Vanilli. The whole scandal of Milli Vanilli being basically a fake band, lip-syncing all of their material from actual musicians due to label shenanigans, kind of overshadows what their actual music was. Glorious late 80s R&B cheese. You can tell right away when you're listening to one of theirs. There's the rapper and singer going back and forth with just these booming voices that are so completely hammy and, let's be frank, mediocre. The lyrics are all kind of inane, but super cliche and sappy. All the beats are these over-the-top 80s R&B grooves. It's kind of glorious in how bad it is. But it's still got its charm. All or Nothing, however, does not have that same charm. First of all, it takes the silliness to unprecedented levels for Milli Vanilli. I'm honestly not sure what exactly they're going for, because the verses seem to be those usual "ooh baby I love you" stuff, but then the chorus is like all or nothing, something blah 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 blah, and seems to be trying to hold the girl at bay, so we can't really tell if they're in love or not. And for some reason they keep mentioning George Michael and Marvin Gaye. Sure, fellas. Whatever references get us through. And then, of course, there's the problem of the beat is terrible. You see, in other hits of theirs, like Girl You Know It's True and Blame It on the Rain, they do have very catchy hooks, very good backbeats that you can sort of groove to as you sort of chuckle to yourself. But this one doesn't. It's all clunky and awkward. It's a very boxy, very squared off beat that just doesn't work. And thus makes All or Nothing probably one of the worst hits to come out of the Milli Vanilli camp, which is saying something. Number 9. Vanilla Ice ruined hip-hop for white people. Name one rapper who's white and isn't a huge cornball or had a giant flare out. This includes Eminem. But yeah, it's a bit of a rough one. There's a lot of very obvious things wrong with it. First of all, the Queen sample. It takes a lot of audacity to go into court and say that you didn't plagiarize someone else's bass line because you had a little tss at the end of the beat. And also, it just isn't that great a bass line. I don't like it that much. Then, of course, and then there's Vanilla Ice himself. He's got that off-key, sort of idiotically mean-sounding voice. He's just rambling on about things. it's not an interesting thing to really criticize Vanilla at this point. But I'm a bit more interested in it's a little theory of mine. You see, when listening through all the list, there were a lot of silly pop rap songs, and Ice is markedly different from a lot of them. Like, they usually go for like samples on samples, big break beats, all these catchy hooks, but Vanilla Ice, I think he's honestly trying to go for more of the tone look level. He's trying to be a bit more hardcore, more gangsta. Like, he's obviously not Eazy-E, you know. He doesn't cuss. Most of his punchlines are kind of silly. He samples a Queen song. The chorus is just him going, "Ice, ice, baby." And so it's not that bad. It's not like filthy gangster rap, but on the other hand, you know, he's trying to be all macho and bragging and such. And also, like, in the third verse, he suddenly talks about getting into shootout with crackheads, which is a very big whiplash from "I'm gonna whack the chump like a candle." And also, like, listen to that beat again. Like, it's pretty much spare as all get out, you know, just a bass line and some percussion. That's what you do when you're trying to be more menacing. That's like, you know, Boys in the Hood or a Wild Thing. Actually, Wild Thing is probably the best comparison, considering also very obvious sample. But Tone Loc is a lot more charismatic and has a much more coherent thing. Vanilla Ice is just scrambling for street cred. And then considering how fake he turned out to be, it's kind of hilarious in retrospect. But for our purposes, it's just a pretty bad song. Number 8, Have You Seen Her by MC Hammer. Apparently he decided to do some recordings during a karaoke night, and the results were bad. You see, MC Hammer is a man of limited talent, but generally he knows what his talents are. He's a guy who's able to get the budget together for a big old early 90s banger, and then sort of be the hype man for the beat, you know, just shout some random hook and or catchphrase or whatever, and then be done, you know, too legit to quit. You can't touch this. Pray. These are the songs that people like by MC Hammer. And for this one, he decided to slow it down for the ladies and get on the Highlights or Kylight special. I'm not sure which one. And very liberal sampling, even by the standards of 90s hip-hop. And he's just sort of doing this spoken word thing over it that just no charisma whatsoever. He sounds dead. Like, he sounds like he's sort of taking a little bit too much NyQuil, but not enough to be actually interesting. It's just like he's kind of sleepy. And it's just not a very good sound for him. He's a very hype performer when he's actually good. But then that makes you listen to the lyrics all the more. And what are they about, you might ask? I'm glad you asked. Apparently, while he was dozing off, MC Hammer dreamed up an ideal woman for himself. The woman who has it popping the most, as it were. And when he wakes up, he decides he's gonna go find her. Sure thing, buddy. And so he calls up a bunch of early 90s one-hit wonder rappers and tells them, hey, go around and look for this girl that, you know, is around somewhere. And he's gonna go look too. Like, in the movies, in the club, in the store, in his car, and on the stereo. First of all, you start losing places to go, buddy. And second of all, this is a woman you made up. There's nothing you can really look for beyond this woman looks like some random woman I dreamed up. There's nothing to go on, but what are you even looking for? It honestly feels almost kind of like he had the basic idea for the song. He had a hook, he had the sort of gist, and then partway through he lost all his lyrics, and so he just sort of rambles through and just manages to stretch it out for as long as possible, because towards the end he just starts referencing random things. But yeah, it's just a song that makes you go, why? Why did we need this? Sure, MC Hammer, go find your dream girl and the millions of dollars you lost. Number 7, I'll Be Your Everything by Tommy Page. I'm a bit uncomfortable with heavily criticizing this song and just blasting it, because the singer Tommy Page recently committed suicide. So I'm going to keep this brief. It's the usual bland 90s ballad, Casio production, all of that. It's not much different from a lot of songs that are just saying love and devotion, except one, Tommy Page's voice is not very good. And also, he has a line in the second verse saying, now that we're together, we should forget the problems of the past, which I found a little bit creepy. Otherwise, not a lot. Let's move on. Number 6, Opposites Attract by Paula Abdul. Strike one for this song is the usual problem for a Paula Abdul song at the time, which is what little singing talent she possesses is immediately cut away by her complete lack of breathing ability. Like, she has the tiniest voice imaginable, and it does nothing. She's just not a singer. Like, she makes Britney Spears look like Pavarotti. And in fact, Britney Spears at least was able to use her voice and make a personality of it. Paula Abdul sounds all chipper and stuff while being tiny, and that just doesn't work. And so, as usual, they pile on 50 different synths and the biggest drum machines they can find because it's Paula Abdul. They gotta bury her vocals underneath, or people will realize how terrible a singer she is. And so this is actually a bit one of her more restrained production pieces, but it's still just this blaring dance pop monstrosity. Strike two was how lazy the lyrics are. As the title suggests, Opposites Attract is about opposites who attract one another. It's pretty stupid. It's just her and the guest rapper listing off a bunch of ways that they're different from each other, and how their friends sometimes will say it's not going to last. And then they're like, well, we're still in love, so might as well. And that's just lazy songwriting. That's just you listing things, listing opposites. This is a game of Coke or Pepsi gone wrong. No, you have to hold yourself to a higher standard than this. Especially because the very first difference they have, the first one that came to mind apparently. One likes movies and one likes TV. Wow. It doesn't even seem like, honestly, actual personality clashes. This just seems like mundane things. None of these seem to actually bother either of you or put any stress on the relationship. It's just you guys rambling. This is the country songs checklist version of love ballads. And then strike three is the guest rapper. It's a vocal duo called the Wild Pair, who the studio apparently did not think was interesting enough of a duo to sell a number one single. Fair point. So what did they do? They created an alter ego for the Wild Pair, the animated feline rapper MC Scat Cat. This is just so hackneyed and obvious a marketing ploy that it just kind of it's painful. How insulting does it have to be to the hip-hop community where it's like, hey guys, check it out, a rap verse. Oh cool, by an animated cat. What? It's it's the most insulting way that you can go out at a time when hip-hop was starting to really burgeon into the mainstream. Somebody had to be mad about this. But apparently the studio didn't get the memo in time to stop from producing The Adventures of MC Scat Cat, his full-length LP. That's right, an animated cat has a rap album. Go check that out for a fun time. Paula Abdul, you were the nice judge on American Idol, so now I get to be the mean judge to you. Hehehe. Alright, stay tuned folks, coming soon with the top 5 worst hit songs of 1990.